Zelensky is participating in everything what's going on in the country. He is definitely in charge of a lot of steps that are taken and a lot of solutions that are taken. And definitely he's communicating with the Minister of Defense and with the Commander-in-Chief very often. Every day in the morning he starts his meetings.
Now, Ukraine. A Russian rocket strike killed 25 people in the town of Chaplyne in East Ukraine. On the date marked 6 months since the invasion from Russia. Ukrainians have said that the airstrike targeted civilians with two children among the dead, an 11-year-old boy and a 6-year-old. Russia says its Iskander missile had hit a train station that was due to carry arms to the front line in the Donbass region. Now we can talk to Iulia Mendel, former press secretary to President Zelensky of Ukraine, author of The Fight of Our Lives. She's now speaking to us live from Kyiv. Good evening to you, Iulia.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here, Iulia. So we heard from President Zelensky yesterday, that speech to mark the Independence Day of Ukraine and 6 months since the invasion. Just give me your take on the work being done now by the Ukrainian president. Those speeches are clearly important, aren't they, when it comes to morale in Ukraine, sending a message to the world as well. Behind those speeches, his leadership. Tell me more. Does the president have a very active role in day-to-day conduct of the war, military strategy and tactics, for example?
Well, thank you for asking this. This is a really important question. First of all, let me say that Volodymyr Zelensky did not leave the country, and that was the first and the most important thing that he has done, because we know that there are already historical events when leaders were leaving, and then we don't know if Ukraine would hold. So this is 6 months of war, and people believed that Ukraine would fall like in several days or in several hours even. And we are standing here, and one of these reasons is because the president said, no, I'm staying, the government is staying, and we are gonna fight back. Yesterday, during the Independence Day, Russia sent there were 189 sirens in Ukraine. It was like around 14 hours of sirens. Can you imagine that? That was like some kind of congratulation from Russia that is invading Ukraine, and they hit several regions. But Ukraine is fighting, and we are trying to regain our territory. For you to understand, we already regained the territory which is of the size of Denmark, which is good for us on one hand, but on the other hand, we understand that 20% of Ukrainian territory is still under Russian occupation.
Yes, I mean, the fight back has defied all expectations. And I was also wondering, Yulia, whether Volodymyr Zelensky is active in determining the conduct of the war. Does he have a war leader's role in the way that military forces of Ukraine are used?
Well, Volodymyr Zelensky is participating in everything what's going on in the country. He is definitely in charge of a lot of steps that are taken and a lot of solutions that are taken. And definitely he's communicating with the Minister of Defense and with the Commander-in-Chief very often. Every day in the morning he starts his meetings with getting the information of what's going on the front line, how many people died, where Russia tried to attack, and what Ukrainians have done, what Ukrainian army, Ukrainian volunteers have done. And every day they are having meetings, they're holding them to understand what is the situation. On one hand, their leadership must be strong. On another hand, the leadership must be very flexible. This is very difficult, but I know definitely that the president is deeply engaged in everything, starting from military steps and finishing with diplomatic negotiations.
Julia, it's reported the final pair of reactors at Zaporizhia nuclear plant have now been disconnected from the grid. Your thoughts on that? Because winter's coming, and there'll be a fear, won't there, that homes that aren't heated, can't be heated, is going to add to the suffering of Ukrainians, maybe make it harder to conduct the war, but also it will lead to more refugees crossing the border.
You're absolutely correct. And that's why the leadership of Ukraine, but also Ukrainians themselves, are making everything to try to finish this war. And people are talking about negotiations, but the thing is that why does Russia need negotiations to withdraw the troops? And this is very important. If you talk about Zaporizhia nuclear plant, there is a very bad situation there. And this is like different from what's going to happen in winter, for the reason that this is actually a nuclear threat that
Mm.
can not damage only Ukraine, but it can damage the European countries too. And right now, nuclear plant was stopped because of war. And we know that, we need definitely to return to Ukraine and to make it operate so there is the safety.
All right. Good to talk to you. Thank you, Iulia. That's Iulia Mendel, former press secretary to President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking to us there live from Kyiv.